I'm actually going to be talking about a specific piece of research that I did with some colleagues in Lancaster University and in University of Ulster. Their pictures are there for you to peruse. Okay, so this is a topic of interest for me. My research is around new and emerging technologies and how we can use them for healthcare, particularly commercial technologies. And my previous work with people with Parkinson's has really identified a need from people with Parkinson's to understand much more about their condition. And if you don't know about Parkinson's, it's a progressive neurological condition. It affects about 10 million people worldwide, largely in older people, and is generally kind of manifests in movement symptoms, tremor, rigidity, and a slowness of movement. But there is a huge range of non-movement symptoms which make it a really quite complex and messy condition to work in. So we have fatigue, anxiety and depression, hallucinations, obsessive-compulsive issues. So what we really wanted to do was understand a bit more about these kind of complexities and these different symptoms and how we could use technology to help us understand a little bit more about the condition and build up a better picture and contextual understanding about what's actually going on. And there's quite a lot of technology research that's been done previously, which mainly focuses on movement symptoms, so using wearables, using mobile assessment to look at different symptoms of Parkinson's. But they tend to be mostly focused on one symptom and can be tricky to build up this complexity. So the Internet of Things gives us a really great opportunity with the absolute vast amount of technologies that we have to really create these bespoke kind of platforms and solutions to help us build up this understanding. So in order to do this, we wanted to get both a clinical and an academic perspective on what the challenges and opportunities were, and also talk to some people with Parkinson's and their caregivers to understand a bit more about their lives and see what their priorities might be. So this is actually related to the work with the people with Parkinson's, but the first bit of work that we did was to run a 2-day workshop with academics and clinicians, which we did in Lancaster. And this was bringing people together to discuss the topics and set an agenda. So we had a range of talks on things like ethics, adoption, and then set an agenda for what these kind of challenges and opportunities might be specific to the clinical and academic space. And the main opportunities really that came up did actually tend to center around the movement symptoms, how we could use monitoring of different symptoms of Parkinson's related and the impact this has on their medication and how that can facilitate conversations with clinicians. And then the big challenges were really around the robustness of these technologies that we're using, how we join up all of this data to help us to build this picture, how we tackle these bespoke solutions. And then we ran some workshops with people with Parkinson's and caregivers. So we had 4 that ran across the Northwest. There's about 13 people in total. So we kept these relatively small so we could get some really rich insights from them. We asked them to do some timeline activities where they were talking about their symptoms across a day, what type of information they actually wanted, what type of symptoms they were having issues with, and where we could actually input technology for monitoring. And then we also asked them to talk about data sharing and privacy and some of the concerns that they might have had around this, and that who would they actually want to share this type of data with. We can collect all of this data, but where does it actually go in the end? What I would say, the conversations largely centered around things like diet and exercise, and how diet and exercise interventions, I guess, could impact on movement symptoms. So this was something really quite tangible. So there's real opportunity for different sensor systems that could help us kind of understand some of these mundane aspects of Parkinson's and things like their diet and exercise, and how this impacts on their symptoms. And then we also, interestingly, found that they were doing quite a lot of self-experimentation. So they were doing quite a lot of non-clinical interventions with themselves. So things like eating peanuts, eating Marmite, but really wanting to understand what impact this then had on their symptoms. And then this last one, we actually found that they are using astronomical amounts of technology already. And this kind of notion that we have about older people, older people in particular, not being early adopters of technology is something that we should challenge. So we can leverage the technology they're using already. This is a paper that we've got published at CHI this year, so if anybody is coming to the conference, please come and see the talk. And that's it.